The Springfield Roman Catholic Diocese and 3 Western Massachusetts prosecutors have reached a deal on how the church will report allegations of sexual abuse. Under this agreement, the diocese must turn over information about sexual abuse claims it receives to the appropriate district attorney's office. I spoke with Hampden District Attorney Anthony Gulluni for the details.
I think it probably incorporates their responsibilities under a social contract and probably many of the responsibilities under law in a way that's much more comprehensive, specific, and uniform than anything that had existed in the past. That was really the objective when we began the process of creating this memorandum of understanding 12 or 18 months ago, that we wanted something that was very specific and clear and would provide a uniform process for the church to follow for the immediate future and for potentially many, many years to come. Obviously, with the thought that we hope this really would never be necessary, that there wouldn't be any more victims. But really, we wanted to make sure that there was a process in place, again, that was specific and uniform for the future. And I think it does incorporate their broader responsibilities, but it puts things in writing. And it's an agreement between law enforcement in our respective areas as district attorneys and the Catholic Diocese in Springfield.
And it has been signed, it has been formalized, as I understand, at the end of April, correct?
Correct.
And in addition to the framework, it's a 6-page document, that framework that you talked about, really articulating step by step what the church will do and the steps that they will go through. But it also requires that if there is an allegation that they do bring forward, that they suspend any investigation that they may have had for 3 months. Why was that an important piece?
Well, it's important that law enforcement make first or immediate contact with a victim and with witnesses. And as with any investigation, whether it's an investigation involving a victim or it's an investigation involving a child, really any investigation, law enforcement's immediate response is important. And it's also important that a law enforcement investigation really be unfettered or not influenced or affected by another parallel investigation. In this case, obviously, that would be a diocese investigation because they have their own investigators that work these cases and sometimes work with victims. It's important for the propriety and the quality of an investigation, especially when you talk about an investigation like this involving potentially a child victim or someone who's been victimized over the course of some time, that law enforcement really be the only agency, the only persons making contact with that individual. And if there is going to be criminal charges, it's important that, again, it's unaffected by any outside influences. Statements are the only statements that are used. So really, it kind of gives us the first bite at the apple, the first crack at an investigation. And if that investigation materializes into something that's going to produce criminal charges, it's going to remain the only investigation. And that's very important. Again, especially when you consider victims, that you only have a single statement or a dialogue with a particular investigator. It can really hamper an investigation to have something happening at the same time and the victim having to deal with multiple investigators, so to speak, or multiple dialogues with different people sort of investigating the same thing.
So is this something that has gotten in the way in the past, where the diocese may have started an investigation or questioning, and then your office became aware of something, and those two investigations were tripping over each other or conflicting in some way?
Yeah, that's happened in the past where either an investigation had begun by the diocese and then law enforcement picked up an investigation, and again, there was some sort of distortion there. Or there were two investigations sort of happening at the same time, and that again becomes problematic. So clearly, Carrie, this process started back 3 or 4 years ago when my office became aware of some conflicts or some inconsistencies in information between what we were hearing directly from victims and witnesses and what we were hearing from the diocese. And as a result, we started this process again to make it more uniform. So there were some issues in the past. There's no secret to that. To a degree, that was in the public sphere, and initially caused us or moved us to start the clergy abuse hotline, which still goes on. But this process also began around that time. I think in both parties' interest to make sure that victims were treated appropriately, and where there was a need for criminal charges or a criminal investigation, it could be done in the best way possible.
For victims or families who are listening to this, to watching this, I'm sure the question in their mind is, how is this going to help us? How is this going to protect us in any way that's different than what we currently have now?
Sure. So one point I want to make for anybody who's been victimized, please come forward, whether it happened 25 years ago or it happened 2 weeks ago, whether you think it's been addressed, it's been dealt with, report it. It really can't do any harm for us to be made aware of a situation, to have a line of communication with a victim or a victim's family. But I think for victims now, it ensures that if a case or an allegation is reported to the diocese, there is a specific process in place that is enforced by essentially a legal document, a memorandum of understanding between the relevant district attorney's office and the Springfield Diocese. So victims and their families can ensure that that process is in place and will dictate any reporting to law enforcement. And sure enough, that allegation will make it to law enforcement. But importantly, Carrie, I want to make it clear that our clergy abuse hotline is still operational, is still staffed 24 hours a day. We will get back to victims. So if a victim or a witness or somebody wants to report something directly to law enforcement, that person can still do that through the Hampden District Attorney's Office Clergy Abuse Hotline. And of course, anybody can go to a police station and report a matter, or make a phone call to a police station. And sure enough, wherever that is, we're sure that a police department will handle that and have a detective work the case. So it really just provides more certainty for a victim if that victim decides to go to the diocese first, that again, that legal process is there. It will be reported to law enforcement, and it will be done in a timely way that again is in accordance with these best practices as laid out in the memorandum of understanding.
And we are, just for viewers know, we are going to give that phone number a little later in the broadcast so they can have that available to them should they need it. For you, this is a memorandum of understanding. I'm sure that there was a give and take with the diocese. Is there something in here that you really pushed for, that you felt, yes, this must be in here? Or was there something that maybe, because this is a give and take, that didn't make it into this document that you really wished had made it in?
In terms of the latter proposition, Carrie, no. I mean, we were very firm on certain criteria, certain timeframes, et cetera. And frankly, the diocese, through a process of sort of negotiation and back and forth, we came to something that I think all three district attorneys, and certainly I, was very happy with. And I feel that it does set a process and meet our objectives that we started with. There was really nothing over which there was real conflict. But with any legal document, and when you involve lawyers in a process, it gets a little bit sophisticated. And certainly it took us a little time to go back and forth, especially given that there were three DA's offices really as signatories ultimately to the final document. But we were really committed that every allegation would come to law enforcement first, and that we would have a time, that 90-day period, to investigate that before the diocese would do anything. And only when the district attorney's office would say, it's yours, essentially pass on an investigation, would the diocese then be able to begin its internal or civil process. So that was really one of the pillars we thought for this memorandum once it was set. And sure enough, that did, of course, make it into the final MOU.
As I understand it, you are a Catholic. Unfortunately, the allegations of sexual abuse are not something that's unique to the Springfield Diocese or the Catholic Church in Massachusetts. This is an ongoing, horrible issue that has followed the Catholic Church for quite some time. As a Catholic, do you look at this vow of celibacy that's attached to the Catholic Church and think to yourself, it's something that the Church really should take a look at, whether or not it should be in effect in our current society?
Boy, that's a larger question. Maybe that goes all the way to the Vatican, certainly over the head of the Hampden District Attorney. But yeah, I mean, given that these problems are so endemic to the Catholic Church internationally, certainly not just here in Springfield, but I think it's undeniable that there's been a very significant problem within the Catholic Church for many, many years. I think it does cause one to wonder about the system by which priests are installed and how they have to live their lives, especially in modern day 21st century society. So I've often thought about it. I've talked to my parents who, are devout Catholics, about the Catholic Church. And the understanding is always the Catholic Church is a man-made institution. And our faith is beyond that. Our faith is with the religion and with God and with Jesus. So, those are larger questions that I think, should be considered and maybe are being considered. But I think what we can do here and now, and what I can do for law enforcement and for victims who I care deeply about in Hampden County, is to make sure that we're doing our best, that we have systems in place to protect them, and we have systems in place, God forbid, should someone be abused, that they can be treated the way they deserve to be treated, and an offender can go through a process whereby criminal justice is the result.